I would love to just know your story from your perspective. So I know you're going to Paris this summer, which is so exciting.
Thank you.
So many years have brought you here, and I'd love to know what that looked like and how you got from your 15-year-old self to where you are now, going to Paris.
Yeah, so it kind of starts from the beginning. So when I was in middle school, I was a pretty big athlete. My favorite sport was basketball, able-bodied basketball at the time, and I was kind of traveling every weekend for tournaments, practices, and it was at the beginning of my 8th grade year. I was trying out for an AAU team, so it was like 3 back-to-back practices, and I started to feel a pain in my left shin, and I just kind of ignored it for a little bit, thought it was shin splints, and then it didn't go away, so we went for an X-ray turned into a biopsy, and it turns out I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma bone cancer, which at the time I was more devastated to learn I wouldn't be able to play basketball than the actual cancer at the time, just because I was only 12 years old, didn't really know, what all that meant. So I went through a year of chemotherapy, had a pretty invasive surgery that allowed me, or I guess doesn't allow me to run or jump anymore. So that dream of me being a college athlete, playing basketball, possibly going to the Olympics someday, I thought was crushed. But then I went after that year of chemotherapy treatment surgery. I was declared cancer-free, and I've been in remission ever since. Thank you, which is great. I'm glad to never have to deal with that again. But then, a few short years later, when I was 15 years old, I was approached by a wheelchair basketball coach locally in Milwaukee, where I grew up, and he just was trying to convince me to come to a practice, to try the sport, and I was originally very hesitant because I didn't understand that because I walk in everyday life, you can still play adaptive sports at the time. So I eventually went to a practice planning to say, no thanks, this isn't sport to me. I didn't understand it at all. And then once I saw the sport, I fell in love, and it was very competitive, physical, just everything I didn't really imagine, and kind of everything I loved about sports, reignited that passion that I used to have. So started playing ever since. And then I went after high school, graduated high school, went to the University of Illinois, played wheelchair basketball there, and then I made my first Team USA team in 2021.
Congratulations! That's awesome.
So, I've been training for the past 3 years, and then we'll be going to Paris for my first Paralympics this summer.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. That's so exciting.
Thank you.
Going back to that time when you were 15, and you said that it was harder to hear that you couldn't play basketball than it was that you had to go through cancer treatments.
Yes.
Can you take me back to that feeling of not being able to play your sport? And as a 15-year-old, sports are such a big part of your identity.
Yes.
And what did that feel like?
Yeah, so I was basically traveling every weekend for tournaments. My best friends were my teammates. And I kind of, when I was told I wasn't going to be able to play the sport I loved so much, I kind of crumbled, honestly. I was like, will my friends still be my friends if I don't play the sport with them? What am I going to do in my free time now? It's really that was most of my life at the time. And you don't really, at the age of 12, don't really see the perspective of how, there's so much more than that in life. But I was very sad. So finding wheelchair basketball really, brought back everything I miss.
Yeah. How were you able to, in that time in between, how were you able to find things that you felt like still brought you that, fulfillment and passion? And were you able to find that before you ended up finding basketball?
So I was still pretty involved with my basketball team that I used to play for. So I was the manager when I couldn't play, which was really awesome. And my friends still included me in everything, which is great. But there's a difference between, watching on the sidelines versus playing. And I just miss that so much. So finding wheelchair basketball, I don't have any words for how much that meant to me.
Yeah. What was it like? So you said that you played at University of Illinois. What was that experience like of being a college athlete? And in regards to, the wheelchair basketball community, what was it like being in that community at college and balancing it all and being a college athlete in regards to your wheelchair basketball experience?
It was definitely hard to balance everything.
I'm sure.
Our regimen was we had 6 a.m. practices Monday through Friday, and then tournaments on the weekends. So it was a lot to balance that in school, then also just the adjustment of going away for college. But honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made, and the best place I could have gone for college. I had great support from my family, great support from my teammates. At University of Illinois, one of my mentors, Steph Wheeler, who was my coach, a gold medalist herself, was on the 2016 Rio, coached that team to a gold medal. So she really developed my game and like helped me, you know, become a better person, a better teammate. And I really appreciated that experience.
And could you tell me a little bit more about wheelchair basketball itself and what the sport looks like and how it's the same as able-bodied basketball, but also the differences that you experienced and how you navigated getting used to that difference?
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same rules. The only two things that are different is for a travel, you just do 2 pushes on your wheelchair and then you have to dribble.
Okay.
And then there's no double dribbling or anything, but all of the other rules are the same. Kind of the fouls are more like the chair kind of becomes part of your body in a sense. So like if you hit the chair, it's like hitting a person basically in a, you know, illegal way. So that is how that works. And then how there's a point system for wheelchair basketball. So you are kind of rated on how able your upper body is. So like for me, I have all ab function. I have pretty much all my upper body like strength and everything. But somebody who might have like a spinal cord injury might not have the same ab function and they could be rated a lower point. So I'm a 4-5 and it's a 4-5 down to a 1 and you can only play 15 points on the court at once.
Okay.
So like for example, you can't have 5 people like me all at once because that would be over 14 points, internationally. So it's definitely like it's a strategy, you know, picking your team with like that point system. But those are the 2 main big differences.
Was that once you started playing wheelchair basketball, was that a transition that you had to experience, and was it an immediate you sat in your chair and you were like, this feels right? Or was it kind of okay, I think I'm going to like this, but how do I find my groove here?
Yeah. When I saw it, I knew I was going to love it. But when I tried to shoot my first basket with no upper body strength, I airballed and I was like, oh gosh, this is going to take a lot of work to get some upper body strength to be able to play this. And because I wasn't in a wheelchair every day, I had like no kind of I didn't know what to do with the wheelchair basically when I like sat and I was like, okay, I need to like move in a circle, like how do I go left, right, all of that. So it was definitely an adjustment that took a while for me to figure out, but I knew like after seeing the competitiveness of the sport I would love it.
What did that feel like for you, not being in a wheelchair all the time and having to navigate it on the basketball court, and how did you get used to it and build up those muscles, and what did that type of training just to get into the sport look like?
It definitely just took me getting in a wheelchair basketball chair like as often as I could to kind of train, and I had mentors and like a coach that like helped me through this transition. But it definitely was very confusing, and like even explaining wheelchair basketball now to this day, like I have to explain like, okay, I walk, but also like the wheelchair and wheelchair basketball, like it's just a whole thing. But the wheelchair basketball chair is different than a normal able body or everyday chair for athletes to use it. So it's like you have angled wheels, you can like hit it and it's not going to break, and it's just a whole different setup.
And what was the community like in wheelchair basketball? So when you came into that community, what was the experience like navigating people who had maybe been playing for a long time, or you know, people who are at various levels, and how was getting involved and ingrained in that community? And did you feel like you were immediately a part of it, or did you feel any sort of...
Yeah, so the community of wheelchair basketball has been the most supportive, like some of the best, you know, people I've ever met in my life. It's interesting because in high school, after being diagnosed with cancer and going back to quote unquote like normal life, I just didn't want to be like treated differently than other people just because I had this now disability in my leg. But kind of coming into wheelchair basketball community, everybody is on the same page. Like nobody looks at you for your disability or your past, you know, story, just because everybody is kind of the same. So it's really interesting in hearing like everybody else's stories and just connecting with individuals who are just like you. You know, I met so many other Ewing sarcoma survivors through that. So that's been really cool and just has opened so many doors. So it's been a great experience.
That's awesome. Having, you know, left the basketball community for a bit and feeling like maybe you lost some part of yourself there and getting back into it. What was that feeling like? And did you feel like you got that back? And did you feel kind of, you know, rejuvenated from having that experience back in your life?
So when I graduated college, I just kind of, it was also during COVID, so that was part of it.
But, the 2020 grads.
Yeah, exactly. So I just kind of wanted to focus on my career and adulting, and like, you know, you don't really think like, you can still be an athlete after college a lot of the time, unless, you know, you're like a LeBron James or like in the super, you know, NBA, WNBA kind of stuff. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll focus on my career, you know, get adulting, and then kind of watching my teammates in Tokyo for the 2020 Paralympics. I was like, oh, that's awesome. They won a bronze medal. I was like, I have never known what that felt like. So that kind of sparked my passion again. And after talking with my company, my boss, everyone was super supportive. So came back, and now we'll be in my first Paralympics this summer.
That's so awesome. And that leads me to my next question. So now you're an adult and you're in the working world and you're working a full-time job and you're training for the Olympics. How do you balance it all, and how do you find that motivation to keep going?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. You know, when I'm not working, I'm usually in my wheelchair, you know, playing basketball or training or lifting. So it's just basically like time management and like scheduling. I also have to try and take time for myself to see my friends and all of that. But yeah, when I'm not working, I'm training.
Yeah. So getting into that, what does your training look like? You're here at FFC now, and I would love to know, what do you spend all your time training here? What does that look like? And is how much of a time commitment is it? And what types of training do you do? And what is your training routine?
Yeah, so we have a decentralized program for Team USA. So that kind of means we get together once a month for a long weekend and train together as a team. But then
where do you guys get together?
In Colorado Springs at the U.S.
The training center.
Yeah, the training center. Awesome. So yeah, that's super fun. But kind of besides that weekend, all of your training is on your own. So we have like 3 lifts a week we have to complete. We have 3 shooting sessions, and then you try and get conditioning in about like 2 to 3 a week. So it's definitely a lot. My training I do here at FFC, so it's super nice. This location has a basketball hoop or basketball court, so I can, you know, easily come shoot hoops when I need to get those sessions in. And then like lifting and conditioning. For the conditioning part, you know, like the hand cycle is super valuable, just to kind of, because we're mostly upper body. I don't necessarily need to, you know, work my lower body as much, but yeah, so I've been able to utilize this facility for that, which has been awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you, for your training regimen, for your weightlifting, for that, how do you build out your plan? And how do you know coming into the gym, this is what I'm going to do today, this is what I'm going to accomplish to get to that final goal of going to Paris?
I know. Yeah, so fortunately, we have a professional strength coach in Team USA, so she kind of gives us a whole regimen of like things we need to do per day, and kind of keeps us in check, and, you know, sends us videos of stuff we need to do. So that's been really great. And then it's just basically on us to get it done. And like I have to prioritize, you know, basketball is like my number 1 priority right now, and you know, have to say no to some social things sometimes, and like just really have to stay focused in the Paralympic year. But yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. So from now until Paris, what does that timeline look like? Is it a big buildup? Do you have any sort of tapering? And what is that timeline?
Yeah, so it is a pretty big buildup. You know, we're lifting pretty heavy right now, and kind of we're actually going to China for friendly. So it's a friendly tournament against China, Netherlands, GB, who are probably like our 3 top competition in the world. So we're going there in a few weeks, end of May. And then we're just going to be, you know, training, coming together a lot more often. This summer is going to be super busy.
Yeah.
Trying to be together as much as we can. Our team is kind of spread out all around the country. So we have athletes, you know, in Arizona, Texas, you know, on the East Coast, Chicago, obviously. So just getting together as much as we can to make us, you know, form that team chemistry for Paris.
What people in your life do you feel like you find motivating, being your family, your friends, your team, this FFC community?
Yeah.
How do you find the motivation through other people to help you get to, you know, where you are?
Yeah, so I've been blessed with the best support system. I know I'm a little biased, but my family has, you know, been there every step of the way.
Yeah,
my parents have, you know, supported me at almost every like college tournament I've ever been to. My whole entire family is coming to Paris, and all my friends from college and high school are also coming to Paris. So I have like 35 people coming.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Coming to Europe to support me. So that just like shows how like, amazing they are, and like understanding when like I can't do fun stuff all the time. And it's just, I'm super blessed. So
how do you feel leading up to Paris? Is it all excitement? Is it some nerves? How do you balance the mix of both, if it is? And what is going through that? Because I can imagine the gravity of it is
yeah,
a lot.
It's a lot.
How do you manage
to be honest, I was so we have tryouts in March, and I was just kind of focusing on making the team at first. So that was like kind of where my nerves were. And then after making the team, like it switched in my brain. I was like, okay, now like we have to win. Like kind of a lot of people are depending on us. You know, we're Team USA, so you already have a target on our back just for that. But yeah, it's starting. You know, I'm not too nervous just yet, but like once we get closer, I'll be nervous, but also excited because it's a cool experience. Once in a lifetime.
How do you stay motivated? So you love the sport of basketball, and I would imagine that gets you through, you know, to the finish line of like, okay, I want to win. How do you get in that mind space and like you forget about the weight of the gravity and just play the sport? How do you get into that mental place?
I think just kind of reminding, like, you have to have fun playing this sport. You know, some days it's hard. You know, it's hard to get up early and like do what needs to be done to like be the best basketball player. So I don't always like it, but I do love the sport like every day. So kind of if like, you know, we had like a bad tournament or whatever, it's just kind of like getting, you know, back into your groove, putting headphones in, maybe just shooting by yourself for a little bit. And then, just remembering like why I play and, you know, like who I play for and like how exciting and like once in a lifetime opportunity, like I'm blessed to be in this situation. So
as someone that loves fitness and basketball and all things being physical, you know, you said there was a time in your life that you were worried you wouldn't be able to express yourself in that way anymore. What does fitness and health and wellness and movement mean to you in your life, and why is it so important to you?
I think not saying happiness totally revolves around fitness, but you know, you do feel good. You do
helps a lot.
When you like are, you know, are able to like conquer a goal or like even just like get your endorphins up for a day. So like just in everyday life, I think that's so important. And you know, being able like I said, when I was told I would never play basketball again, I was really confused on how I would, you know, fit fitness into my life again. You know, if like I couldn't be able to run either, like that's a great form of fitness. So finding wheelchair basketball, that's helped so much. It's just a different form. And then just like kind of I've learned so much about fitness in general, like the strength programs. I would have never probably done that on my own, learning to lift and like forms and everything, which has been super cool. But it's been awesome. So it's definitely like changed my life for a very positive.
So for myself and for anyone watching this who will not be in Paris with you, but wants to support you, what is the best way that we can do that?
So I think, well, we're lucky. So the Paralympics will be streaming on Peacock.
So
they start August 28th, I believe, August 28th to beginning of September. So you can always tune in, watch us, support us. If you want to follow my personal journey, I'm on Instagram. I post all the time about my
and what's your Instagram handle?
It's at Emily_Oberst. So I post all my basketball stuff, you know, all the local stuff. I'll be posting a lot in China, hopefully, with like good news that we're kicking some butt nationally. But
awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'd love to see how you navigate your wheelchair and seeing all that, but I really appreciate your time, and I'm so excited to follow along in your journey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.